Всем привет и добро пожаловать в мой канал. Okay, this video is gonna be mainly English today. I need to get through it fast as I can. I'm trying to squeeze it into under 10 minutes because I got quite a lot to share with my random encounters that I've had with Russian native speakers in the last year or so. Yeah, it's been quite a bit, surprisingly. I'm out here in Scotland, and of course, you got a huge Polish community. There's a huge Spanish-speaking community, but in terms of native speakers of Russian, it's not something you hear of often. Everybody knows that there's many Russian speakers here, either for work or for university, but it's not as huge as like a language like Spanish or Polish and stuff like that. But I've surprisingly, I've not went out of my way to look for Russian speakers. It's all coincidence, and I've had quite a bit of random encounters. Even at some on some scale, to whereas it's not just been, I've met somebody out somewhere that was happen to speak Russian, but I've ended up working with people that spoke Russian, and yeah, it's been interesting. It's been very interesting. For example, I had a manager from Latvia who spoke Russian on a native level. I believe it was her first language. I'm not 100% sure because I believe there's some her own language of her area. But so I end up working with her. She got hired, and I ended up doing an early shift, and it was just me and her. So I decided to. I already knew she spoke Russian because other people was talking about it. They're like, "Oh, we got this Russian chick coming," and so I already knew. So I just played silly, and I was asking about it. Where are you from? What language do they speak there, and stuff like that. So she's like, "Oh, I speak Russian," and she said, "I speak this, I speak that." So then I started saying stuff to her like, "Oh yeah, я тоже говорю по-русски," and then she just froze and turned around and was like, "Are you kidding me right now?" And she's like, "Where are you from?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm from Bermuda." And yeah, it's Bermudsky Ostrava. And she was so blown away, like, and then she was like, "So why put yourself through that? Why put yourself through learning anything in this language?" Like, so yeah, it's a lot of random practices with her whenever I had a chance. It was very busy, so it's not like I got to talk a whole lot at work, but I had a lot of random practice throughout the few months that I was working with her. And then I met with another guy. He's actually Polish, but he actually came to work for the company for a while. And this guy was an all-around polyglot. Like, he spoke about 5 or 6 languages. So I ended up speaking with him one day. I just asked him. I was like, "Oh, how much languages do you speak?" Because I knew there was a chance that he spoke Russian because he was an older Polish person. He was over 40, and I knew there was a strong chance due to circumstances in the past with Russia and a lot of the countries around Russia, a lot of the post-Soviet nations, so to speak. I knew that it was a high chance that he spoke Russian. So he was listing off the languages that he spoke. He spoke German, Spanish, of course, English, his native language, Polish, and he listed all Russian. So then I started doing the same thing, chatting with him in Russian. And he was like, "Where are you from?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm from Bermuda." And he was asking, "What language do they speak there?" And I was like, "Yeah, we speak English mainly. Portuguese is a pretty widely spoken language in Bermuda, and then there got Tagalog because there's a huge Filipino community. There's a lot of Hindi being spoken, and So he was surprised. I told him, I said, Bermuda, you can get by only knowing English. There's never a time where you'd have any trouble because you don't know any of the other major languages. I said nobody really goes out of their way to learn, and he was like, so he was really impressed, and he asked about why I learned, and I was explaining, I was a big fan of spy shows and stuff like that, and Russian became interested in me because I thought it sounded cool. So we end up speaking and practicing quite a bit because he liked to practice because, of course, it's not a language he gets to use all the time because Polish is spoken in the house, and then he only really speaks English at work. So, he liked to practice his Spanish and Russian and stuff like that whenever he could. So, that was cool to meet him. And then my new roommate, he's Polish as well. His parents, I believe, are over 50. I'm not exactly sure how old his parents are for sure. But his family came to visit, and he told me his mom speaks Russian. So I was like, cool. I didn't think he would speak to his mom about me, but he was speaking to her about me and saying, yeah, he learns. But, of course, my roommate doesn't speak Russian himself. So, he'd never had any time to really gauge what level I was at and really understand that I'm at a level where I can get my point across for the most part, and I can communicate and use it, even though I'm not, comfortable and I'm not really smooth or fluent. So but I'm actually able to use it. So he spoke to her, and so I came home from work one day, and his family was over the house, and his mom started asking me, "Вы говорите по-русски?" And I was like, "Да, конечно, я немного говорю и понимаю по-русски." And then she was so impressed, so for that whole evening, there was pretty much no English really being spoken. It was mainly just Russian, and then just tiny bits of English. If there's something I really couldn't say, I would tell it to my roommate in English, and then he'd tell her in Polish, and then we'd translate like that. But for the most part, it was really interesting, man. I just never thought that back in the high school days, and I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't really have any educational hobby. I never thought that something like this was even possible to do by yourself at home. But through random experiences like this, I hope sharing this story could definitely inspire other people that have wanted to start learning a language by themselves for any reason, and to just get up and just go ahead and do it, because just like Bruce Lee said, if you think about something too much, you'll never get around to doing it. So take one indefinite step towards your goal every day, and if you do that, you will see progress. You definitely will see progress, and you'll be happy with yourself that you took the plunge. It's gonna be tough. It's going to be weeks, maybe even months, where you read into the material, you learn the spelling rules finally, you can read the language, you listen, you're able to pick up repeated words and stuff like that, but you're not really understanding much of what's going on. You're not really even able to use anything besides hello in the basics. But if you stick to it and you push yourself out of your comfort zone and actually communicate with native speakers, eventually you will get there. You definitely will get to a point. Even if you're at a very basic level, you will get to a point. I'm working on my self-improvement. I'm trying to get better at it. I'm trying to start other languages and stuff like that too. I have resources for Korean. I have resources for Chinese, Mandarin. But the Asian languages are going to take quite a bit of effort because they are very different from my native language. So yeah, I'm gonna eventually get around to doing a few other languages, but I really want to get, before the end of this year, I want to get Russian to a higher level, and I want to get German to a basic level. That's very ambitious, but I'm going for it, man. One step every day, that's all you can do. But anyway, thanks for watching. Baka.